Good day, and welcome to the Low Carb USA 2020 community. My name is Steve Hanley. I'm the founder and CEO of Atlanta-based Nutritious Brands, Inc. Our product, RxSugar, is the world's best tasting, healthiest natural sugar. I would like to take a moment to convey our thoughts and prayers to those impacted by the pandemic, and also to say that Low Carb USA's mission could not be more important during these times, given the extraordinary, disproportionate impact of those suffering from obesity and diabetes and their relative impact on the outcome from COVID. I greatly applaud the work of Doug Reynolds and Pam Devine over the last 4.5 years in bringing together this community. In fact, as Margaret Mead famously said, never doubt the ability of a small group of thoughtful, committed people to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I would also like to extend thanks to each attendee, guest speaker, and sponsor for their evidence commitment to support Low Carb USA 2020 in our collective mission to help impact, mitigate, and eliminate obesity and diabetes. Let's dive in by addressing the elephant in the room, the existential health crisis of our time. Frankly, it's obesity, diabetes, and cancer. In fact, poor diet is the leading cause of mortality in the United States and perhaps even in the modern world, causing over 500,000 deaths per year. More than 100 million adults, almost half the entire adult population, has prediabetes or diabetes. 75% of Americans are either obese or overweight. 70% of U.S. individuals aged 17 to 24 cannot even qualify for military service due to health-related circumstances. Diabetes is the leading cause of death in Mexico. The primary reason is sugar. It's in over 80% of all food and beverage, and it's directly linked to staggering levels of chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart and liver disease, and metabolic syndrome. In fact, when changing their diet, the first choice of over 75% of all consumers is to eliminate or reduce daily sugar intake, followed by, in order, eating more fruits and vegetables, less carbs, and seeking healthier sources of protein. The vast majority of consumers view sugar as the most likely source of calories to cause weight gain. As dramatically portrayed on this slide, the root cause for this existential health crisis, both domestically and worldwide, is traditional toxic cane sugar. It truly is the number one poison. We've obtained the URL sugaristhenewtobacco.com, but it's far worse. Tobacco usage is down to 14%. Sugar is in 80% of all food and beverage. As noted, it's clinically and scientifically proven to create insulin disorders. And part of the challenge is the extraordinary amount of consumption. It's estimated that back in 1776, there were 2 pounds per year consumed by each consumer. That is now upwards into 150 pounds per year per person. Sugar truly must be confronted. We must make sugar's Kodak moment into an extinction event in order to seriously impact, mitigate, and eliminate the health catastrophe caused by this evil poison. To further showcase the scale of sugar, and as evidenced by this slide, the global market for this category is over $100 billion. In fact, it's even created sub-markets in the sugar alternatives that we'll be describing later, such as the artificial sweeteners, the sugar alcohols, and the high-intensity additives, upwards to $20 billion a year. And customers, healthcare providers, and governments are aggressively seeking solutions to replace toxic traditional sugar. So just imagine, if you would for a moment, imagine if you could replace every single gram of traditional toxic cane sugar with a natural, delicious, nutritious, fully functional, non-GMO, project verified, keto certified, FODMAP friendly natural sugar with clinically proven health benefits, RxSugar. once again, contemplate the extraordinary, in fact, unprecedented benefits that would behold mankind if, indeed, you could replace toxic sugar with a healthy alternative. One of the key breakthroughs was in April of 2019, when the FDA formally ruled, and I quote, "Allulose is a low-calorie natural sugar, and per the FDA, is different from other sugars in that it is not metabolized by the human body in the same way as table sugar. It has fewer calories, produces only negligible increases in blood glucose or insulin levels, and does not promote dental decay." That is one of the major breakthroughs in terms of the acceptance of RxSugar, in that per the FDA's ruling, and as displayed on this slide, you can see that the total sugars equals 0, even though RxSugar or allulose is a natural sugar. Therefore, it allows food and beverage organizations to reformulate and replace toxic traditional sugar with a delicious, clean, nutritious, and fully functional natural sugar that does not negatively impact their nutrition facts label. RxSugar can be used in a wide expanse of use cases, including, as noted, in coffee and tea, functional beverages and shakes, certainly with a wide range, unlimited range of baking and cooking options. RxSugar provides for fully functional sugar qualities such as browning, caramelizing, dissolving, providing a natural preservative, binding, and lastly, could even be sprinkled on top of food. So those healthy foods that sometimes lack a sweet flavor profile can be amended with RxSugar to include a sweetness element without any type of health consequences. Let's take a step back and discuss allulose, the rare natural sugar. While we don't have time today for a full-blown discourse on this extraordinary ingredient, what we can discuss in summary is that there is a legacy ascribed to allulose. It was discovered over 80 years ago. It's one of 9 rare sugars in nature, and it's found in small quantities in various sources, such as figs and raisins, corn, jackfruit, etc. In the case of RxSugar, we use non-GMO project-verified corn as the base source. However, it does not contain any measure of corn protein, and therefore there is no remnants ascribed to the ultimate molecule, which you'll see momentarily. So there's no challenges attached to individuals who have corn sensitivities. Allulose is fructose. It's a fructose epimer, which means a mirror molecule. And as displayed, you can see that the molecular structure is a mirror to fructose. It has the same number of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen atoms, and they're arranged in a near identical manner with one oxygen-hydrogen chain that's flipped. As such, the body does not recognize allulose as part of the standard digestive process, and therefore it is absorbed in the upper gastrointestinal tract and is excreted directly. This explains why allulose has such a positive effect on the body, because it does not stimulate metabolism, it does not stimulate insulin release, it does not find its way to the liver where it can be converted into internal body cholesterol, which is what happens when ordinary sugar gets sent to the liver. And as a result, you can see the health attributes that are a byproduct of allulose would include weight loss, inhibits fat absorption, increases satiety, and we'll discuss that momentarily when we take a look at the brain signaling picture. It promotes lipid normalization, so it truly helps in terms of cholesterol, HDL, LDL, and it also, because of its non-interaction with the liver, it helps to prevent fatty liver disorders such as NASH and NAFLD. We've had numerous third parties test our allulose, including the extraordinary FODMAP-friendly organization down in Australia, and you can see the results there where they showcase the amount per serve within a variety of different sugars and show how it's acceptable for FODMAP type criteria. And then Unilever put forth a major published study that showcases versus alternatives like glucose and fructose, how allulose literally did not signal the brain. So therefore, where glucose, for example, will continually signal the brain in such a manner that the brain thus desires more input, more sugar to help serve as a fuel, right? Instead, with allulose, it does not do that, and therefore it increases satiety. So that is a basic overview of allulose and really puts us in position to understand why the health attributes are so, they're really without peer. And allulose as a natural sugar, not as a sweetener, right? Not as a sugar alcohol, not as a high-intensity additive, but as a true, pure, natural sugar found in nature, really is in the best position to supplant toxic traditional cane sugar and thus help address the existential issue of our time. Our excitement at RxSugar is fueled by numerous driving forces, irrefutable vectors that are propelling us forward. Most importantly, the opportunity to address the existential issue of our time, as we've discussed thus far today. Number two, the fact that sugar is definitively a poison in our food system and is a huge market. At $100 billion, as referenced, it's 14 times the size of the salt market. Combine that with the fact that sugar is consumer public enemy number one. As we referenced, it's the number one item that consumers seek to remove from their dietary intake when confronted with the choice of seeking better health, trying to lose weight, and other types of measures to improve their wellness profiles. So, once again, the big picture trends, it's the biggest problem in the world, it's the biggest market in the world, and it's the number one focal point of consumers. Put all three together, and you can see why we're so excited. Of course, in order to replace the champ or the incumbent, you have to be the big three: delicious, clean, and nutritious. Of course, it also helps, as referenced moments ago, that allulose, our core ingredient, is indeed a natural sugar. It's not an artificial sweetener, which has some horrific qualities attached to them. It's not a sugar alcohol, which causes gastric distress. It's not a high-intensity additive. Instead, it's a real natural sugar. We even have an organic version that will soon debut in the form of a maple-flavored syrup that we're super excited about. In terms of the taste profile, and remember, it is fructose, and the taste is peerless. It has exquisite mouthfeel, and unlike all the other alternatives, zero aftertaste. So in my, as referenced, 5 years of working with allulose, I've actually never had anyone tell me that they did not like the taste. No one's ever said like, wow, that was absolutely disconcerting and I cannot eat this. Instead, it's always been, the wow and great reaction to the taste profile. From a health profile perspective, the 0 calorie, 0 net carb, 0 glycemic and metabolic impact, 0 blood sugar impact, these are all proven via third-party lab testing and also within a great number of individuals, those wearing Dexcom continuous glucose monitors, which is really the state-of-the-art in terms of that type of metabolic detection mechanism. 0 register. In fact, we call allulose the horizontal line ingredient because when showcased under those types of profiles or metrics, it produces nothing but horizontal lines, meaning like, no impact, no rise in any of those areas. We have 10 certifications, including the Non-GMO Project Verified. It's NSF Non-GMO certified, IGEN Non-GMO tested. It's keto certified. It is grain-free, gluten-free certified. It's FODMAP friendly certified, which is really important these days because, as many of you are aware, IBD, IBS, gastrointestinal disorders, people who are seeking gluten-free and other maladies within the gut. Allulose, as referenced, is absorbed in the upper GI and is excreted and therefore does not cause issues in that area. We also are on trend for that which is really an exceptional area of growth in the health and wellness world, which is plant-based, vegan, and also, of course, kosher certified and halal certified. So in summary, you take the big three factors of the biggest problem, the biggest market, the number one focal point of consumers, combine that with a delicious, clean, nutritious, and fully functional natural sugar that can be used in baking and cooking and beverage and to be sprinkled on top of foods. In fact, it provides a best of both worlds scenario, and our amazing president and chief operating officer, John Campbell, even came up with a new word called swelthy, which is a combination of the words sweet and healthy. And it's really, when you break down the consumer sort of tree diagram of what they want something delicious, they want something sweet. I think that's innate to humankind's nature to seek sweet as part of consumption of food and beverage. But at the same time, they're looking for a healthy means by which to obtain that sweet profile. So you combine the two and you get, once again, sweet and healthy or swelthy.
In terms of how you describe the market, there's really just four categories out there, right? So there's sugar, right? And there's like traditional sugar, right? Which is sucrose, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. And of course, allulose is a rare sugar that goes into that bucket. The other three, what we call pretenders to the crown, which are now $20 billion a year markets. Well, we have what's called the rainbow sweeteners, and you're all familiar with those, right? Pink, yellow, and blue, right? Splenda equals sweet and low. And the vast majority of consumers consider this to be carcinogens. Okay, so they do survey after survey. They actually and it shows you how bad sugar is, that people will knowingly ingest what they perceive to be a carcinogen relative to the incumbent. I mean, it's like the ultimate, like, horrible testimony about sugar. The next category, which also has made a significant inroad, is the sugar alcohols. And you're familiar with erythritol, sorbitol, and xylitol. The challenge with those is they're not what's called FODMAP friendly. They impact IBD, IBS, and all the other disorders that are caused by what's known as gastric distress, because they leak into the lower GI and they cause significant issues. So it's sort of like you can consume them, but don't consume them too much. They're also, they taste, maybe average at best, and they're less than functional. And then the ones that also have creeped in are the stevias or stevia, the monk fruits, also known as the lohanguo. And the challenge with those is they're 400 times the sweetness of sugar, and therefore they're not functional. So some of the biggest frauds out there, and I have no problem using the word fraud or the word hoax, because that's exactly what they are. They'll show that they want to sell you monk fruit or stevia, and then if you look at the package, you'll realize that it's literally, I'm not exaggerating, it's 99% erythritol and 1% stevia, or 1% monk fruit, right? And similarly, getting back to another fraud, like organic cane sugar. Obviously, by definition, organic cane sugar and non-organic cane sugar are the exact same molecule. And the last time I checked, a pancreas can't read a label, right? So for those people who purport, and it actually agitates me, and because it's, not to get emotional about it, but it really is, it's criminal, because it actually so misleading that someone would say that their product is healthier because it has organic cane sugar versus regular cane sugar. And that's the type of mismarketing that we're trying to overcome. On the next slide, you can see the standard sort of us versus them, and you can see the manner by which we grade this. So we put out the typical, the cane sugars, the sugar alcohols, the natural sweeteners, and the high intensity additives. So you can see where we compete very favorably. In terms of us versus others, okay, this is where we think we have some very compelling differentiation. In fact, our motto is that in order to be seen as best, you must first be seen as different. So what's our key points of differentiations versus others? Now, we were the first to market, okay? So when we appeared on 800 Vitamin Shops shelves back in November, December, we were the first retail, brick and mortar based sale of allulose. You'll find it on Amazon. You'll find some mom and pop selling, who knows what from who know who. But in terms of going to retail, we were first. We also love the fact that with RxSugar, if you think about 10 people walking into a store, let's say into a Publix, right, and you ask them what allulose is, there's a good chance that, and I'm joking here, 11 out of 10 won't know what you're talking about. If you say RxSugar, well, 100% of them will know it's like some kind of sugar. I'd say 90% to 95% recognize that RX means something to do with like medicine, prescription, etc. Number two is we're the only allulose in two formats. So think about this. We're the only allulose product that's in stick pack in the United States of America. We're the only one that has the 10 certifications, including the FODMAP friendly, which is very important for a lot of folks these days with their gastrointestinal disorders. So the fact that we are proven by a third-party lab to be FODMAP friendly is key. We're the only brand that's flavored. Okay, so we have that third product that's coming to market that has the flavors, which will be the modern day pixie stick, which once again, the opportunity to give, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm a parent, the opportunity to give your child something that's a sweet treat that is like the ultimate in a health profile is we think is a major point of differentiation. We're pure of heart, right? So we're the world's best tasting, healthiest natural sugar. We're not like Wholesome. We're not like some of these other companies that, like Merisant, that sell 50 different products. And by definition, they don't care. I mean, they will sell you cane sugar. They will try to sell you what's the only sweet poison on the planet, right? Well, we have a defined, formal commitment that any product we sell, a type 1 diabetic can consume without having to take insulin. And that's a huge differentiation relative to the merit and the virtue and the value of what we put forth.
In terms of receptivity, traction, and velocity at retail, the response has exceeded our highest expectations. As displayed, some of the most notable retailers in the country have already adopted RxSugar and are presenting it to their consumers as the alternative to toxic traditional sugar. These names, which include Publix, Albertsons, CVS, Walgreens, The Vitamin Shop, United, Kroger Vitacost, Amazon, and others, truly reflect the simple value proposition ascribed to the core components. Everyone knows sugar is bad. Consumers in volume are looking for alternatives that are delicious, clean, natural, and nutritious, and RxSugar meets that criteria. So as we present to retailers, we are receiving nary a contentious comment as to the value proposition of what we're proposing. Everyone gets it, and therefore we're very excited as we build the brand awareness around RxSugar and how and why it's going to become the definitive replacement for toxic traditional sugar. We believe that this growth, already reflected in such a short period of time, will continue to expand to increasing volumes. This concludes the pre-recorded session of why sugar is the new tobacco and why RxSugar is sugar reimagined. In summary, RxSugar is delicious, clean, nutritious, and functional, the perfect replacement for toxic traditional sugar. Our website is therxsugar.com, where you can find an abundance of content, including a frequently asked questions section to help with many of your inquiries. We are also offering a special thanks to the Low Carb USA community, a 20% off at checkout. Please use the discount code LOWCARBUSA. Finally, and most importantly, our thanks and profound appreciation to the organizers of Low Carb USA 2020, Doug and Pam, to the attendees, to the speakers and guest speakers. This is truly a privilege, and I'm so excited about the live Q&A session, which will start immediately. Thank you. This is Steve Hanley, founder and CEO of RxSugar.
Okay. Well, look, I can understand. I think everyone else can kind of understand what it's not ideal, but let's live with that. Turn the levels down just a little bit. Okay, let's live with that, and get on with this, because it looks like there's a lot of questions here. You know, this is a subject close to a lot of people's hearts. So,
Okay.
all right. So the first person, Dr. John Cripps, asked about peer-reviewed, non-industry sponsored studies on insulin and glucose responses in humans. And a guy from your organization responded to him and said, asked for an email address so that he could send the stuff to him. So I'm assuming that means you have some kind of, well, a lot of research, I'm assuming, that you based this on, right?
Yeah, we have exhaustive research, and hopefully you can hear me, but as referenced, allulose was discovered in 1940, and we literally have hundreds of studies, clinical, science-based, some performed by organizations like Unilever that help to support exactly our claims relative to where and how allulose engages with the body.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's maybe something you can send us that I can maybe put in the Dropbox with all the other slides and stuff, and just to give people access to that, like if they're interested in looking at it, that would be good.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we freely share that information, and the Dropbox is going to have references to, once again, dozens and dozens of studies, correct?
Yeah, so I need you to send me your slide deck, actually, and when you do that, you can send through anything else that might be of interest. Okay, so someone asked, is allulose on the list of permitted sweeteners in Canada?
No, and the reason why is very straightforward. When allulose was first commercially produced, it was produced by Tate & Lyle, which is the UK's largest and oldest sweetener company, and they made a GMO version. And many of you are aware that GMOs are verboten. They're flat out taboo in Europe. So the EU put a temporary ban on allulose. Since that time, the non-GMO Project Verified version has emerged. And in fact, the German government has sponsored a company called Savannah Ingredients, and they're producing a non-GMO version, and they're fully confident that by either Q4 of this year or Q1 of next year, the EU will lift that temporary hold and thus free up all the EU impacted countries, including Canada, New Zealand, Australia, even South America, to be taking this wonder sugar.
All right, cool. What effect, if any, does the RxSugar have on the microbiome?
That I would have to reference the scientific studies, but the key with allulose, as referenced in the presentation, is that because it is a quote-unquote an alien structure relative to its molecular construct, right? The fact that it's a fructose isomer, it's wholly absorbed in the upper GI, upwards to 95% or more. So therefore, it really never reaches the gut. So it doesn't have that adverse impact. And alternatively, what it does, it increases satiety. It doesn't signal the brain, doesn't impact or interact with the pancreas or the liver. Ergo, it is, as I referenced, the best of both worlds, right? Because it's sweet and delicious, and it is fully functional, yet it doesn't have any of the harmful consequence of toxic traditional sugar.
Okay. Someone is also asking if there's a danger of overconsumption. What is the danger of overconsumption?
Well, I think that's really just in the realm of reasonableness. I mean, I'm sure, and not to be trite and cheeky, but I would assume that virtually any food on the planet, water aside, any measure of overconsumption could cause some measure of impact. But we are formally certified by the #1 FODMAP group on the planet, and that's FODMAP friendly down in Australia. And I'll share those results. But we are, once again, we've earned that formal certification. And I think FODMAP friendly is the gold standard by which people can interpret whether or not something will have a negative impact on their digestive process.
Okay. So Kurt here is saying that he bought the 1 pound container. He's going to use a glucometer and do before and after videos for his clients. I'm assuming you're confident that those results are going to be good. Hopefully, maybe he can even share them with you. I suppose either way, he should share them with you.
Okay, and I apologize. The question was, he took videos before and after.
Well,
testing.
it was more a statement than a question that he's bought this container and he's going to use a glucometer and do before and after videos of it before and after and show his clients. So I was suggesting that he shares it with you as well, because I'm sure it'll be interesting to everyone. I know.
Absolutely. In fact, it's probably, I mean, as mentioned, I mean, our sworn missive is that we're only going to develop, produce, and market products that a type 1 diabetic can consume without consequence. And we think that's the gold standard. And over the last 5 years, in my intimacy of relationship with this ingredient, I mean, we have seen organizations like College Diabetes Networks, Beyond Type 1, JDRF. We've seen casts of thousands of individuals who have, who are metabolically sensitive, who have consumed this product. And we, as I referenced, we call it the horizontal line ingredient. In fact, we're certified by Ryerson University, who we believe has the #1 nutrition lab in North America. It's about a 10,000 square foot nutrition lab. And they run us through both in vitro and in vivo type testing. And they showed it's the lowest impact food that they've ever tested in the history of that lab. So we're really, really confident that in terms of our #1 goal, i.e. not disturbing metabolism, that we've met and exceeded those expectations.
Okay, so there's 2 questions here about the discount code. Sarah's asking what it was, and then Terry's saying that she's trying the code Low Carb USA and it's not being recognized. Is Low Carb USA 1 word or 3 words for the discount code?
Okay, it is one word, Low Carb USA. Our Vice President of Marketing and Digital, David Karen, is on this call and actually in the chat room. So David, I don't have visibility to that, but if you could real time assess that the discount's working. If not, if you could quickly send back out to the community, the appropriate code, that would be terrific.
Okay, cool. Low carb, yeah, now someone else is also saying Low Carb USA doesn't work. Okay. Is allulose sweetness rating 1 to 1 with sugar? I.e. would the recipes be like 1 cup of sugar is 1 cup of RxSugar?
No, in fact, it ranges from about 70 to 80% of the sweetness, depending upon the use case and the formulation. So in certain instances, people will use like 1.2x or 1.25x if they're making healthy cookies or cake or other baked goods. However, it all comes down to the individual's preference. Some people prefer less sweet, and therefore you can use it 1 to 1. We do, on the product itself, recommend the 1.25 to 1.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. I think it's a thing with all of us on keto after a while. Even like I still like some sweet stuff now and again, but my tolerance for the sweetness has definitely gone down. So less sweetness is good now. Somebody was mentioning a different competitive product, I suppose, with it's also allulose. It's talking about 70% as sweet. So that's kind of the same ballpark that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the ratio, right? And as I referenced in the presentation, we recognize that allulose is a global ingredient. We are hopeful that at some point, and it sounds myopic, it sounds rose-colored glasses, but I think the challenge I would put to the community is tell us what could have a more consequential in terms of beneficial impact of replacing every single gram of traditional toxic cane sugar with healthy, nutritious, delicious, fully functional allulose or RX sugar. Now, we've taken it a step farther by branding it because 110% of the people don't know what allulose is. We also have the only convenient form factors, the only flavored version, the only one that has gone so far to get 10 certifications. We have sample programs. We have the only one with an organic version coming out. So we feel that we're first mover. We know we're the #1 branded allulose ingredient on the entire planet. We have upwards to 4,000 plus stores, every major retailer. We're about to launch a huge initiative on Amazon, which we think the top digital partner in the country, Compass Marketing. So we're very confident that we're on course to really make a major dent in the sugar universe.
Okay, so David's just chipped in and said, try one more time. He thinks he's fixed it. And Terry said it's working now. So the code's working now. Are there independent long-term studies in humans regarding safety?
Indeed. This was GRAS approved through the FDA filing. Now, our partner, who's our strategic supplier, they have amassed the #1 experts in the country, like the individual who actually wrote the 150-page GRAS submission to the FDA, Dr. Susan Cho. She's as notable and as infamous a food scientist as there is in the country. She was 25 years at Kellogg's. Also, many of you are familiar with Dr. Michael Murray, right, who we think is probably the #1 subject matter expert on all things allulose. So we have studies that go back 15 to 20 years. And what's great about the studies is that it's not complex, right, because it's an individual ingredient that is literally fructose with that one flipped oxygen-hydrogen bond. And because we can fully support how it is excreted through the body via the absorption in the upper GI, I mean, by definition, it's how much impact can it have if 95% plus of it is being excreted? So that's what. So the combination of the legacy of 80 years, the 20 years of studies, and the subject matter experts we have on board makes us fully confident that it's the right sugar at the right time to solve the existential problem of the planet.
Okay, where is allulose sourced, and are there challenges to availability?
The sourcing in terms of where it's actually produced, right now it's produced around the world. There's plants in South Korea, in China, India, Mexico, Germany, and France. People take different approaches. Some use beets as the source product, some use corn, some use figs, some use raisins. Well, we believe that the non-GMO corn is the best source relative to parlaying the economics with the output. And in terms of availability, it is definitely constrained at this time, which is actually really good because it allows us to have a narrow supply funnel that we own that we can then use to land and expand and then grow additional products from there. And then as more and more producers come online, then of course we'll have greater ability to reduce pricing and make it more available. See, the real problem with cane sugar, and let's just be candid, is that it costs 12 cents a pound. And it costs 12 cents a pound because 90% of it is made in Brazil and in India, where the labor conditions and the labor wages, frankly, are not good, just to use a politically correct term. And therefore, allulose is approximately, let's say, $3 a pound. So therefore, as we reduce the price of allulose and then showcase, as governments are doing around the world, right? They're banning sugar, they're taxing sugar. We're going to see an equilibrium arise that will hopefully transition sugar's Kodak moment, the fact that 100% of the people hate sugar. I know 100% of the people Doug, and you're on this 3-day event, Hate Sugar, right? So therefore, once we transition that Kodak moment to an extinction event, the world will be a better place.
Okay. Rose is asking if it can be consumed by kids, if it's safe for kids.
Absolutely. I mean, once again, we have studies that showcase that, which I'll freely share. But yeah, in fact, I was just actually in dialogue just by pure coincidence yesterday with a group over in the UK who actually makes products for children, and therefore, once again, you can't get around the fact that fructose is fructose, right? It's one of the monosaccharide simple sugars out there in the planet, and that's exactly what allulose is. But it just happens to have that fortunate sort of change in its molecular pattern that provides the health benefits as opposed to the consequences of a standard fructose.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to ask this if we got to the end and we still had time, but then Dwight asked something similar as well. So he's asking about. So my concern is fructose is bad news, right? And it gets processed in the liver, right? And it can only be processed in the liver, and it contributes highly to fatty liver disease and that kind of thing. Now, he's asking, or is it metabolized like fructose, or does it undergo the same pathway as glucose, which I believe you were saying it goes down a different pathway. So he's saying that it is, even though it's like a mirror molecule of fructose, it's not actually being processed in the liver like fructose.
In fact, that's a great question. In fact, that's like the symbol clash moment, in that where fructose does make it to the liver, allulose actually we have scientific studies that show it prevents fatty liver disorders like non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, because it never makes it to the liver. See, I don't want to sound like this is magic or mysticism. It's really easy when you break it down. Because it's a fructose isomer, the body doesn't recognize it. So it's absorbed in the upper GI and it's urinated out. We have studies, once again, that show 95% or more is urinated out. So therefore, it never gets to the liver. The liver never processes it. The liver can never, sort of incur the wrath of standard sugar or standard fructose by developing those liver-based maladies. And that's the reason why, and as I showed in that one slide, right, it doesn't signal the brain, right, which, as we all know, with the gut-brain axis, right, one of the key developments of the last several years is how the gut signals the brain relative to satiety and other types of mechanisms. In this case, we have definitive study from arguably the #1 food company on the planet, Unilever, that shows definitively and categorically that there's zero, not 1%, zero impact of signaling to the brain, which once again shows it's absorbed in the upper GI, not processed, not part of the digestive process. It's the reason why type 1 diabetics can consume it without any measure of insulin or metabolic disturbance, because it never makes it to the pancreas. It never makes it to the liver. So that's a great question, and really showcases the reason why we're so excited about allulose and its potential impact.
Yeah, that's very cool. And it looks like no more questions have come in. So that's maybe a really cool way to end this. Thank you for being with us and helping us to be able to afford to do this. And yeah, good luck. It sounds like I haven't looked into all the research yet, which I will at some point, but it sounds on the surface to be pretty amazing. So hopefully it's as good as it sounds, and it can genuinely, as you say, replace sugar predominantly in time. That would be good.